Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we are looking at flowers. Why don't we? It's one of those updates to boost confidence type of a video. We're gonna look at flowers, buds, and orchids that generally do well, thankfully. If you wanna see the ones that don't do so well, check out my shorts channel. I post those there as well. Excuse me. It's very early morning, so we need to have some concerts. Anyway, so today I'm gonna show you the good stuff. So if that sounds good to you, then continue watching. But don't forget to give this video a like if you end up enjoying it. And why not subscribe? I post multiple times a week, right? P.S. Just a little insert. By the end of this video, I discover something amazing that I've never seen on my Hoku gem. So stay tuned until the end to see it. Right, let us start with an orchid. Many of you asked me to do an update when it's in full bloom. And well, it's almost in full bloom. I don't want to miss it. I'm also going to film a shorts presentation spotlight video for the second channel. This is the wonderful orchid with 8 flower spikes. This is an orchid that continuously produces flowers. Since it is a polychilous type, it is a sequential bloomer, and all of the flower spikes can last for multiple years. For how many years, I'm not entirely sure. I have this orchid for about 2 years already. So these flower spikes, which are older, are at least 2 years old. Maybe older than that. Did I actually tell you the name? This is the bastianii. It is a species, although it has been obtained 100% in cultivation. Tissue culture is a big thing with orchids, so we don't need to get them from the wild, pretty much. Especially these very, very common and popular orchids. One thing I noticed with this orchid is that the flower spikes can actually start to grow all of a sudden from the very base. So you have flower spikes up above, but then below those flower spikes, you can have tiny flower spikes just sprouting at some point, which generally Phalaenopsis do not do. They work on apical dominance pretty much. The higher growth node dominates, the lower growth nodes not so much. If something happens to the top, then yes, the lower node will start to develop. This is how production of keikis in the case of crown rot happens. But this particular one seems not to have any rules. One thing that I'm noticing now is that it is incredibly dry. It could use a repot, although I could wait another year to be fully honest. But it is bone dry. It is watering day. However, the orchid is absolutely fine. She's a tough cookie. I didn't smell the flowers actually. I thought I detected something yesterday. Now it doesn't, but it's incredibly early. It's not even fully light outside. So when I do the spotlight on the second channel, I will tell you all about it. Don't worry. But for now, yeah, look at that. She looks wild and very, very pretty, doesn't she? All right, next up, some vandas. Here's the one that I asked you ID because the tag, the original tag, got all bleached out from the sun, and I don't remember what I purchased. I always thought it was the Rapeepath pink, which sounds familiar to me, and I asked you for some help. Some of you pointed out that I did make a video on this one like a year ago or a year and a half ago, calling it Rapeepath pink. Yes, I know, I've been calling it that way ever since I lost the tag 2 years ago at this point. And then I kind of doubted it because I don't know. What if it's something else? So you guys gave me some good ideas. I checked them out. None of them sound familiar. I think in the end, yeah, it is the Rapeepath pink, even though I did lose the tag about 2 years ago. But looking at pictures online, it doesn't look really like anything else. So that's what it's going to have to be. Beautiful orchid, isn't she? Still in bloom. We're gonna make a spotlight on her as well. Definitely not as fragrant as one of its parents, which is the Bangkok Sunset, a staple on my channel, but it has much bigger flowers. Coloration, arguably prettier, I don't know, a little bit more intense, even though the Bangkok Sunset can look super nice and intense as well if well cared for. But honestly, I really like it. Now, I do have the other Rapeepath, the classic one, more yellow one, just spiking. I would have wished I had them in bloom at the same time so we can compare side by side, but no. I'm gonna definitely make a spotlight on this one because the coloration is darling. It's a beautiful coral color actually, pinky coral. It's just out of this world, not as fragrant. I wouldn't expect much of a fragrance from this one though, but still beautiful. However, what I wanted to show you is that my oldest Rhynchostylis gigantea is also spiking here. This is the spotted one. I purchased it thinking it was something else. I do remember, and I remember where I got it from many years ago, and it turned out to be spotted. Yeah, I think it should have been the cartoon version, which I eventually bought. I have a thing for giganteas in Phalaenopsis and also in Vanda orchids. I don't know why, but I really like them. This one though has spotted flowers, and I do remember to this day, 2-3 years ago when it first bloomed for me, I put a picture on Instagram with this one. It took off. The video did well as well when I put it in the thumbnail, so it is a beautiful orchid. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's one of those that takes your breath away. And look how beautiful the orchid itself developed. I noticed that these guys, everything that has Rhynchostylis in its parentage, maybe not so much Iridis, but Rhynchostylis loves being potted in my environment. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's potted. I kind of said that like I was saying Harry Potter. But it has to do with moisture. These guys, in my opinion and in my experience of living in a very hot country, that kind of accentuates dehydration if it happens. It feels like these guys appreciate being moist more than the big Vandas. The big Vandas for me are much more tolerant of droughts. These guys, not so much. Immediately I can see dehydration in the leaves, and I'm starting to feel a little bit because it's watering day. And yes, she's bone dry, she needs water. But ever since I potted my Rhynchostylises, I have an accent this morning. I don't know why, you guys. I need coffee. For those of you wondering, I'm not British, I'm not American, I'm nothing that speaks English, I'm Romanian. So my accent is like, I don't know. I don't know what type of accent. I don't even have like a Romanian typical accent. I speak however I can. Sometimes it just goes off the charts. I don't know. So yeah, bottom line, these guys did better for me when I kept them more hydrated. And I mean much, much better. They grew much nicer, much fleshier. One thing that I love about giganteas is that they have this fleshy substance to the leaves. Love them, and I cannot wait for them to become humongous. I don't like huge orchids, but I like these guys. So yeah, she's gonna be in bloom very, very soon. My oldest gigantea, I have her for 4 years, 5 years. How old are you, honey? I don't know, but she's my baby. One little orchid that I really like ever since I purchased it, this is a newer one. It's this beautiful Phalaenopsis Philippiensis crossed with Fuscata. I need to check if it has a name of its own or we're just going to refer to it as the cross name. Oh, we have a yellow leaf. Easy peasy, see? No need to cut it, it comes right off. This orchid has one of the most beautiful foliages that I have. It really is a grayish dark green. Bonus, it has a little bit of spotting on the leaves as well, pretty similarly to not the Schilleriana, the other one, Stuartiana. That's another one that I want, but I want the white version. But did you see the flowers? They are so beautiful. I love spotted flowers so much. But take a look at the lip. The lip has stripes. Everything else is spotted, but the lip, it looks like it's coming from a different movie. I love this orchid so much. Coloration of the flowers is not very intense though. It is pretty pale yellow. There is also a very slight fragrance, I feel like. Very hard to determine. I will try to make a spotlight on this orchid as well on the other channel, although I was thinking to let it get a little bit bigger. She's a tiny orchid, pretty young orchid actually. I got it as close to blooming, not really seedling, as far as I remember. So it is growing pretty slowly, but definitely it should be quite a lot bigger than this. So I was considering waiting with the spotlight, but still, flowering this year looks very beautiful. And I can always redo the spotlight as it grows, right? I can always do that. But anyway, I wanted to show it off today because it really is something unique. I really like Phalaenopsis. Listen, I'm at extremes. I don't like flower shop Phalaenopsis at all. Like at all. I don't want to have them. I don't like them. Well, except the minis. I talk about the big ones. However, I adore, love, cherish the beautiful either Polychilus, either stuff like Schilleriana and its hybrids, you know, things like these. The tinier, the better. In my books, the more compact, the better. The bigger, the not so good. but I accept big orchids if they're polychylous, for example, gigantea, which I love. So I'm at extremes with Phalaenopsis. I don't know why, but these guys, my favorites. Maybe more than Cattleyas. Oh no. No, I like them the same, I think. Anyway, let's move on. Another orchid that definitely will get a spotlight when it's in bloom is this one. This is the Phalaenopsis speciosa red-crossed rosé. Now, some debate that the speciosa is actually Tetraspis C1. I'm not entirely sure where we stand on that. I'm just gonna call it speciosa because that was the tag. And I do feel like I see a little bit of a difference in variety. I had the Tetraspis C1, it made tiny flowers. This one makes big flowers and is a little bit more vigorous. Do you remember my Tetraspises? I had two, like in my life. One a long time ago. I lost it when I moved to this country. And then another one that I purchased after I moved here, that fizzled out. It did not even bloom properly. That's why I purchased this one and I got it. Did I get it for my birthday this year? Last year, sorry. So yeah, I got it last year. And I see that I repotted it in November 21. So most probably I got it in October. So I got it because it wasn't Tetraspis C1. And I wanted to see if there's a difference because both of my Tetraspises fizzled out. And they didn't bloom properly and they had tiny flowers. Well, this one has bigger flowers, kind of like this, which means nothing to you. It's about 4 centimeters across. That would be around 2 inches or so. So considerably larger from my previous orchids. It grows much more vigorous and it also doesn't create very spindly flower spikes. What was that thing that I did? Yeah, I tried to describe spindly flower spikes. Look at the bastianii that I showed you earlier. Ghosts. It was just my rootstock cabinet actually closing. It has magnets and probably was close to the magnet and now it got close enough to close. Freaked me out. Oh, so many distractions. So that's a spindly flower spike to me. You noticed how it kind of grows on and it's just long and it has flowers at the end. It's pretty. But the way that the Tetraspis did it, it was not pretty. I don't know. It was just different. This one doesn't tend to do that all that much. It's a little bit more compact. And also, do we see the amount of buds we have? Now, last time it bloomed, like a few months ago, a couple of months ago, the flowers were all white. And I think I did present it in an update. I was telling you, oh, look, how interesting, only white flowers. When I purchased it, definitely it had some red on the flowers as well. And this time, I can already see through the buds that I will have some flowers that I do believe will be almost white or even white, but some that will have quite a bit of red. So from my point of view, there is a difference. Now, it could be a Tetraspis of a different variety or a little variation of it, right? But it could also be that indeed Speciosa and Tetraspis are not really the same. I don't think so, though. They're just so similar. But yes, I totally see differences. Let me know in a comment below, did you ever have issues with the Tetraspises becoming very frail, not really blooming all that much, and Speciosas behaving differently? Let me know if you find a difference, because I seem to do, kinda. And if you know, what's the consensus about the Tetraspis C1 versus Speciosa? Because I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, what I am entirely sure of is that this is a winner. This is a very vigorous orchid. Yep, look at the rootage on that. She is bone dry. She could use a drink, but the roots, they're having a good time. Very, very drought-tolerant orchids, Phalaenopsis. If they go overboard, though, they do lose flowers and buds, so be careful. I'm gonna water everybody today, but yeah, really happy with my decision to try the Speciosa rather than the Tetraspis C1. Definitely see a difference in this one. Next up, one of my most floriferous Cattleya types. This is the Sun Mei Gold. I repotted it last year in March. So she has been potted here for a year and it's already kind of filling out the pot. Definitely she can stay here for another year. But I was considering something with some Cattleyas as well, or particularly Cattleyas. So I'm gonna use the Sun Mei Gold, which is one of my favorites. It's potted. I really, really like it. Not fragrant, but she's beautiful. I'm gonna use her to segue into an idea that I will show in a different video. Let me get a different orchid. So I showed you a picture this weekend that I was playing around with moss. Well, I discovered something. Because I have grow lights from above, the decorative pots don't do such a good job at shading the interior pot anymore. It would have been different if the light was from here, let's say from a window, right? Because it would create some shade here. Well, if it's from above, there's not a lot of shade. And as you know, my decorative pots, some of them are very light colored. Well, I discovered that I do have a lot of algae formation inside pots because of this. And that's something new to me. I wasn't expecting it since I'm using transparent pots, right? And well, some orchids really started to decline because of that. The roots were having a very hard time because I do believe I sometimes get cyanobacteria, which is very toxic. And yeah, the roots really don't like it. So I decided to do something. Try out a little something that I've kind of always had in my head. But see, I'm conflicted about it because it implies not using transparent pots, but using these typical, I don't know, nursery pots. I don't know who this belongs to, you know, typical pots. And put moss in them instead of my combination of bark and moss. And I don't mean like compacted moss, but like very fluffy moss. And of course, bark chips at the top to shade everything. And this way, there will be no algae forming here whatsoever. I can leave this like this for 2 years and nothing will happen. There are a few reasons why I want to do that or play around with this setup, which I will talk about in a different video because it's gonna get long, but I'm trying particularly with Cattleyas. And you might say, but wait, Cattleyas actually like ventilation, all that fun stuff. Yeah, sure, whatever. No, they like air and moisture at the same time like any other epiphyte. What they can do is be very tolerant to drought. And yes, you can maintain that medium a lot drier and in good condition for longer, because it breaks down faster when it's moist, right? So the idea is not to make it break down all that fast. However, it just occurred to me now, almost 3 years after I started to use this setup, it occurred to me that my sphagnum moss is a much better quality than the bark I use, which is great. I find it locally, saves money, I don't need to order and import it. Yeah, great. But that moss is better quality. So when I repot after 2-3 years my orchids, maintenance-wise, I discovered the bark is like falling apart, but the moss is still good. Like it could definitely go 1 more year. And especially with Cattleyas, which can stay dry. The moss does not break down. Very good quality moss, which, you know, you can find always the products that I used linked below. Also, did you see the video with the ICU? Do you think I use moss randomly instead of anything else? I could definitely put leca down there as a wet material, but I don't. I use moss. Why? Moss is magic. No, but moss is the right pH. It doesn't have a fluorescence way too much like leca would. It's fluffy. It's very nice to the roots, you know? Orchids love moss if used correctly. Now let me just show you my Dimorphorchis lowi. Look at him. Look at him. He has been potted here from November 2021. And the setup he's in is the same as this. Moss, only moss in the pot, and bark at the surface. Let's dig a little bit. See? I don't know if you can see. Moss and bark at the top. He is going so well, better than any other that I had. And I did this because, I don't know, I saw a post on Instagram from Orchid Web. They have theirs in full moss, and I thought, well, I can do that. Why not? No, I have been fancying the idea of moss-only setups for a while. I just needed a little boost. And I just didn't want to repot everybody unless I had to. So I will talk more in detail, if this wasn't detailed enough, in that video, but I am playing around with moss-only setups. And there is a right way of doing them and a wrong way of doing them. So I'll elaborate more on that. But I think some of these orchids will really appreciate more a setup with only moss. Will I put my big vandas in moss? No, I'm gonna spend an entire block of moss on a vanda? No. So let's not go there. But tinier ones that have root issues due to that algae thing, I will play around with this setup and I'll take you along. The worst thing about it is that I cannot show you roots. And it's important, I guess, for my channel to show you roots, right? But it's okay, I have my Phalaenopsis. I can show you roots on them, that's fine. With these guys, which are more obscure, like what is this? Laelia Diana. How many of you know about Laelia Diana? If you're a beginner, right? You know, obscure orchids. I'm gonna play around with these, not with the very popular ones. I don't know where I was going with this, but I'm trying out some setups, especially for Cattleyas with full moss. And again, I want to insist on the idea that please, no more preconceptions about moss. I think we outgrew that. Yes, when we were kids, 10 years ago, we heard that moss kills roots. Totally untrue, we outgrew that. And if you've ever ordered orchids in full moss, Cattleyas in full moss, you know it can work, it's good. But there is definitely a right way to use it and a very wrong way to use it, which we'll talk about. But I'm pretty excited about it because it cuts down on cost. I'm not using a lot of moss at all in this setup. You might think there's a whole bulk of moss here. It's not. I'm gonna show you. You'll see, you'll see. One thing I just noticed right now, so I put that Cattleya back in the Millspoke cabinet. That's where it sits. The little Cattleya I showed you, that's her place. I just noticed something. I'm gonna put a note on the beginning of this video. You need to see this. This should not happen. Okay, this is my Perreiraara. I think it's something else. Hoku gem sunspots. Another very, very prolific bloomer. Look how well it grew in the Millspoke. Some orchids love the Millspoke, some not so much. I'm starting to believe now that the root issues that I was seeing in the Millspoke were not because of the lack of ventilation, although it's very ventilated. That thing is not tight at all. Remember I told you some orchids just don't really like the Millspoke, some Cattleyas, well, I'm starting to think it's because of the algae formation in the pot. Anyway, because some of these, look at it. And this one does not have algae in the pot because it's a self-watering pot, right? Opaque everywhere. So, what I want to show you, I'm so excited. Did you ever see a Cattleya branch out? A Cattleya spike? No? Alrighty, look at this one. I have a branch. I'm gonna take you closer. So I have the main spike like it always did, like it always bloomed. And down there, I thought I had a distorted bud, but then I looked closer at it. No. It is a congregation of about 3 buds on a secondary shoot. Cattleyas don't do that. Cattleyas have one central flower spike and then at best a cluster of many blooms at top. Never a branch. Why did this one branch? Let me know. Did you ever have a Cattleya branch? Because I might be excited for nothing now. I have never, ever seen. This is a new thing for me. Cattleyas don't branch. Imagine a Vanda branching. It's that odd. Could it be just a glitch? It could be. It could definitely be. Maybe in that growth node, by mistake, a bud didn't form, but a branch. But it's still incredible. It shouldn't have happened. And I have to say, it is the biggest growth this orchid produced. It does not really fit all that well in the Millspoke. So when I repot it, which will be soon because it's growing at the very edge, I will put it in a normal pot. Self-watering pots, great. They were great, absolutely great. Can I do without them? Yeah, absolutely. This is not a fail. Love self-watering pots. You guys know that. Cattleyas can grow in self-watering pots. They love moisture. Cattleyas love moisture. It's a misconception that they don't. They're just very drought tolerant. They love moisture, but they love air at the same time. They have sensitive roots. That is not a misconception. They are sensitive indeed compared to other orchids. They can suffocate really fast. They don't like to be moved around way too much and like snapped, but they love moisture. Cattleya roots love moisture. I will repeat it forever and ever. And yeah, this Cattleya branched. And I'm happy. Woohoo! Now, I think it put on the biggest pseudobulb of its life. I didn't do anything. I just put it in self-watering because she is a thirsty Cattleya. She consumes her water very, very fast. It is a big root producer. I cannot remove this pot. Oh, I didn't break any root. Yay. But can we see? And when did I pot you here? Probably 2 years ago. I need to get you out. But she is a big root producer, water-loving orchid. I put her here because she enjoys water so much and because she has more moisture, she grows better. Ta-da! Anyway, so that's about it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I will make more highlights on my shorts channel. I will be sure to do that. If you want to follow me on social media, search for me. I'm at MissOrchidGirl everywhere. Most importantly though, do subscribe to this channel. It is my main outlet. And with that said, I'll see you next time. Bye!